sorry if my fan is loud. I need it. Um, well, I just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about the mother. And when I say the mother, I mean the mother of all. The counterpart to the male, to the father, who we all know very well, those of us who have been brought up in the West or been brought up in Judeo-Christian traditions, or who have been brought up in cultures that are centered around those traditions. We all know who the father is. But who's the mother? In Christianity, she was turned into a ghost, or sometimes a prostitute. Um, in other religions, she's present, but she's like, we just don't really seem to have a very clear picture of what that energy is, who that entity is. There are a lot of goddesses in various traditions and various religions. And I've been thinking a lot about it lately. I was having a conversation with some people not too long ago about so-called invasive species, which as a biologist, I no longer believe in that narrative. I don't think there are invasive species. I think there are species that move into open niches, and I think we're the ones opening those niches most of the time. If not us, then some other natural disaster. Sorry, but that's how we behave. But anyway, I was talking to them and I was talking about human exceptionalism and what a slippery slope that is, and that's also kind of a thing that we just made up in our heads, that we're so different from, the rest of nature, that we're outside of nature. Often you'll hear people talk about man-made versus natural. And that's the whole thing about invasives, right? Is that often, so often, it's species that we moved somewhere. And so we consider that not a natural process. I don't agree with that, but that's beside the point. I was having this conversation, and I was talking to people about how human exceptionalism doesn't fly. We can't keep putting ourselves outside of nature and saying, oh, we're different because X and Y. And I realized through the course of that conversation that I was doing exactly that. And this is one of the reasons that I love having these kinds of conversations, because people are really adept at hearing and attuning themselves to hypocrisy and contradiction. We don't really think that. I feel like we think that, like, here in the Kali Yuga, at the end of the Kali Yuga, we're just dumb. Everybody's dumb. You hear people say, God, everybody's just stupid these days. That's another thing that I can't really get on board with. I think maybe people don't have the intellectual prowess that everyone's looking for, but there's this level of intuition that people are awakening to. A lot of people. And in these conversations about invasive species, people can sniff out hypocrisy and contradiction. And one of the contradictions that they sniffed out in me was this comment that I often make, that the difference between human disturbances and other natural disturbances is the rate and scale at which we disturb. It's a global thing, and we're doing it so rapidly. And then I thought to myself, wait a minute. Nobody even caught me on this one, actually. They were catching me on other inconsistencies, but I caught myself on this one, and I said, wait a minute, that's just another form of human exceptionalism. The idea that we're messing things up faster and bigger than anyone ever has, anyone ever could, like maybe other species, but not all natural processes. We are a natural process just like any other. And if you think about, like, volcanoes that have erupted and covered the entire freaking sky with ash, or the meteors that have hit the planet and, like, extincted a bunch of animals and changed the, geology and hydrology and content, makeup of the atmosphere, all kinds of things have been immediately disastrous, or not even disastrous necessarily, because that's also sort of an anthropocentric way of seeing things. We see it as disaster. I feel like nature probably just sees it as change outside of the human mind, and probably outside of the Western mind, really. It's just change. So I was sitting and thinking about that, and I was thinking about how it would behoove us to stop moralizing human disturbance and saying that it's bad and then we're evil and we're a cancer and all these things. We don't have to keep, we should definitely, in my opinion, keep trying to change our ecological impact, because I believe wholeheartedly that we can be. Hi Angela. Hi Ram. I believe wholeheartedly that we can be a good influence ecologically, that we can have a positive impact ecologically and otherwise. So I just started thinking, okay, so I'm looking at these so-called invasive species and I'm actually seeing ecological benefits. Okay, now logically my mind just goes to, okay, humans. How can we look at what we're doing ecologically and see and like stop moralizing that, and beyond not moralizing it anymore, see potential benefits? Okay, that's really hard to do when you think about like rivers of trash and dead zones in the ocean and strip mined mountains and things like that. But then if you can put us back in the context of nature and see that as another natural disaster, natural disturbance, large scale disturbance, what does that do ecologically? It spurs evolution, for one thing. We know from studying deep history that one of the things that often happens after a big natural disaster is a lot of evolutionary growth and rapid sort of like evolution just sort of puts its tentacles out there and starts doing really cool stuff. But we tend, particularly in the West, in the Western mindset, to doom and gloom it. Oh, it's all horrible and the invasive species are choking everybody and we're choking everybody because we're a cancer and the world would be better off without us and all these things. And we really heavily moralize it. And that's not scientific. It's not even like, it's just it's misguided. It's really misguided. It's unfortunate because it just sort of keeps us in this place of like self-hatred instead of getting to a place where we can start building and start doing things differently. This is also beside the point though, because what I really want to talk to you about today is morality. I know that seems like totally completely off of what I was saying, but hear me out. So I was thinking about, what is it, us moralizing what we're doing on the planet. And I was thinking like, that got me thinking, where does morality come from? Because I was raised Christian and then I forsook that around 21 and became a scientist. And then I realized that I had chosen another religion, because a lot of science right now, the method is beautiful. The method is amazing. The method is an incredible tool for gaining knowledge. But the scientific community is made of people with biased minds, and there's a lot of dogma in science. And particularly now where you have this sort of like follow the science culture and we believe in science trend happening in the West, that's not science, that's scientism. And it's a religion complete with priests in white coats, lab coats. They happen to be lab coats instead of robes, but the universities are the temples and so on and so forth. So then I had to start looking at, okay, well, what is the source of morality? Because I didn't think that it was some external God anymore. I certainly don't think science is a source of morality. But clearly we have a morality. We have a system for figuring out how to treat each other. And then in this sort of same vein with human exceptionalism, I started thinking, holy shit, if we're not exceptional in any way, and we have morality, then does that mean that everything has morality? Does that mean that every being, every source of consciousness, every aspect of God, of the one, or whatever you want to call it, of the source, everything here that you see is moral? Could the rivers be moral? Could invasive species, quote unquote, be moral? Could every single thing that you see around you have some level of morality, as it is this consciousness? It's inhabited by consciousness relative to all these other beings that are inhabited by consciousness. So then I go to ChatGPT at this point, and I'm having a conversation with ChatGPT about it. And ChatGPT, as you may know, is programmed to certain biases. It's programmed with certain biases. ChatGPT started giving me this line about how consciousness is, you know, is specific to humans, and therefore morality is specific to humans because morality and consciousness are linked. And I went, whoa, back up, because I don't believe that. I think that's false programming that ChatGPT is running on. I don't think consciousness is relegated to the human species. I think consciousness is the basis of all, and matter is an emergent form of that. So is morality also an emergent form of consciousness? And what does that mean? So the temporary conclusion, because I feel like all conclusions are temporary, the temporary conclusion that I have come to is that as soon as the Big Bang, as soon as the singularity, you know, as soon as the beginning, whatever you want to call it, happened, as soon as one became more than one, morality was automatically an emergent property born from that split. Because once one conscious being becomes once there is more than one conscious being present, morality is an inherent property of that relationship. And what it is it's just a choice of, how am I going to treat you now? Because now there's not just us or me anymore, there's you or them, but you're me still. You're a part of me. You came from me. We came from the same thing. So now I get to figure out how to treat you. And that's literally all morality is. It's just a choice of remembering you're another me. As I apologize for the term, Aleut leader, and I apologize, I also can't remember how to pronounce his name, who has been on various platforms over the last several years talking about how we need to move forward as a species, and we need to come together, and we need to figure this stuff out together. He said that their greeting to each other is, hello, other me. And that makes a lot of sense to me, because that's what it is. We came from one thing, and we are all a part of that. We are all versions of that. We are all images of that in different forms, learning different things while we're here. So we've been in the Kali Yuga now for a minute, and we've been in this moral system that's way over masculine, and it's based on rules, and it's based on judgment, and it's based on, punishing bad and rewarding good, and it's good and evil, and it's hard-lined, a hard-lined system of morality. But now I'm meeting the mother, the energy that was turned into a ghost in Christian mythology, the energy that's been just completely forgotten in many different in a lot of the larger religions. I think she's been asleep. I think she's been resting. I think that's what she does during the Kali Yuga. I don't know that she's been oppressed or erased or any of the other moralized things that people say have happened to the divine feminine. I think she's been asleep, and I think she charged us humans with our big old brains with, taking care of the rest of her children while she was taking a nap, and we haven't done a really good job, but we can turn it around, and I think we are. And I think part of that is remembering her. Oh yes, we don't just have a father, quote unquote, we have a mother as well, because that's the only thing that makes sense. When you think about the Holy Trinity in Christianity, it never made sense to me. You have a father, a son, and a ghost. That doesn't make sense. Look at the way that life works. Look at the way that it's set up. Look at the patterns of life. Yes, this is not always the case. You have asexual beings. You have various mechanisms through which things can procreate. Beings can procreate. But by and large, on this planet, you have a male and a female, or a mother and a father, and they make children. That's the schematic. That's generally the rule, with exceptions. So where was the mother? Where's she been? Where is she? I mean, even a lot of the like feminine, goddesses and feminine mythology that we have is like these masculinized figures like Kali and Lilith, who they're, Kali is allegedly like cutting the heads off of men in particular, and a lot of women who fancy themselves feminists sort of twist her purpose into like this sort of man-hating, like take vengeance on men for oppressing women role, and that's not at all what Kali was about or is about. Kali wants to take from you what no longer serves you and slay that. And she will hurt you if you try to take it and then give it to her and then take it back. That's what Kali is. But imagine when those mythologies were written and who they were written by. They were written during the Kali Yuga by men. So of course they're overly masculinized. That's what happens during the Kali Yuga. That is the characteristic of the Kali Yuga. And we're just now coming out of that. So we have to get to know the mother again. We forgot her face. We forgot what she was all about. Even now when you watch videos or you look up things about like the feminine, divine feminine, there always has to be some sort of masculine, what do you call it? Like parameters on it. Some sort of like, you got to throw some terms in there. Like I was watching a video of a lady who was talking about, really beautiful woman, talking about femininity and the feminine and the divine feminine. And she said, yeah, you can be soft and receptive and nurturing and all these things, and you can still kick ass in business. And I was like, oh God, when we're talking about the masculine, we don't have to do that. We don't have to be like, we don't just like obsessively and sort of compulsively work feminine adjectives into it when we're talking about masculinity. But we do it when we're talking about femininity. We can't let it stand by itself. And it's like we don't know it well enough to allow it to stand by itself. Because femininity, pure divine femininity, is something that we're pretty uncomfortable with, especially in the context of like Western thought and Western feminism and that kind of thing. Because it is not... it is not an energy of loudness, protest, resistance, defiance, power gaining. That's all already taken care of on the masculine side of things. The feminine is silence, receptivity, surrender, acceptance, pure unadulterated love of everything. No judgment of what is good or bad. It is just pure acceptance of what is. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Nag Hammadi scriptures, or if you've ever heard of what is that poem in the 6th Codex? Thunder, Powerful Mind, or Perfect Mind. Thunder, Perfect Mind. If you haven't ever read that, look it up. It's incredible. And I've been reading it these last few days because as I get to know the mother again, I'm finding these resources. Little girl, answer me. Hi. I'm not a little girl, but thanks for the cute nickname. Yeah, so as I'm getting to know her, I'm starting to understand true feminine power. And even, I don't know if you guys know Iyanla Vanzant. She got in some hot water not too long ago. I think she was talking to Charlemagne the God, and she was saying that a woman's true power is her silence. And there are a lot of women who did not like that. But if you really understand what she means, I don't know how you can argue with it. We've had enough of the masculine, as far as like everyone just thinking that's the way to get stuff done. That's the way our whole entire culture is set up. That's the mindset of almost everybody on the planet right now, that's the best way to go because the West steers the ship. But like you look at like that, the Aleut leader I was talking about, he talks about the men in his tribe having this feminine connection with nature that allows them to know before they ever see a seal or a fish or whatever it is they're hunting, how far off it is, how big it is, what age it is, what sex it is, like all these incredible, all this incredible information that they have because they're plugged into the mother, and they learn these things in silence. They teach these things to one another. They share these experiences in silence. They're using their intuition. They're not using their intellect, because the feminine is about intuition. And we haven't had any respect for that. I was just listening to a Ram Dass talk the other day, and he was talking about when he was a psychologist, and he said we were incredibly sexist. In the lab, we would talk about how men have intellects, men use their intellects, and women intuit, as if it was this like sin, you know, that women intuit. So, long story short, I'm finally feeling her. I'm finally feeling the mother. In silence is when I feel her, because words themselves, even the words I'm using, are masculine. When I say this, I imply not that. Every word I use divides something from something else. So it's in the silence where that integration starts to come back in, where you start to put things back together. And I think it's in the silence where we will find each other, really. You know, there's a place for protest. There's a place for resistance. I'm not saying that those things should be gone. It's about balance. And we've been out of balance for thousands of years because that's the characteristic of the yuga. Yuga is not the only word for it. There are other traditions. There are other cultures that have various, you know, words for this cycle that we go through, terms for this cycle that we go through as a species. And so we don't have to feel like terrorized or, you know, demoralized or like guilty or anything about having been in the Kali Yuga this whole time. It's just a natural part of our cycle. But we can help to start, you know, accepting the mother, learning about the mother, learning about the feminine in ourselves. What does that look like? How does it behave in our bodies and our hearts? What does it look like as we're relating to one another? What does it look like relationally? What does it look like in our relationship with nature? I would posit that fighting against invasive species is more of the over-masculinized way of dealing with things. I think if you think a species is, you don't want it there, the best thing that you can do, I have found as a biologist, is to figure out the ecological role of that species and help it do it. If it's preventing erosion, get in there and help it prevent erosion, and it'll be gone before you know it. Is it dumping nitrogen into the soil? You go out there and put some nitrogen into the soil, and that species will be gone quicker than if you just go out there and try to remove it, because you're doing nothing to the niche that opened up that it is filling when you do that. So help them. You wanna get rid of invasive species? Help them. Help them do what they're doing. Figure out what they're doing and help them. That's the feminine at work. There is no rejecting in the feminine. There is only working together, figuring things out by intuition, connecting, putting the dots, putting things back together, reintegration, right? Building, you know, the womb builds things out of materials. So that's a pretty long rant to say, won't you join me in getting to know her again? Won't you join me in learning the contours of her beautiful, infinite, loving face? Because she's in every single one of us, and she loves us, and she wants us to love each other the way that she loves us. She wants us to remember who we are, and that there's only one of us here, and that you're me. You're another version of me, like the Aleut leader said. Hello, other me. They greet each other. So that's what I'm going to try to do. That's what I'm trying to do right now. I'm trying to remember, trying to, you know, be there as she's awaking, to say, hello, mother. We didn't do too great while you were napping, but we're getting things back on track now. We're going to clean the house up. Don't worry. What do you think? What do you think? I would love to hear your thoughts. I may have never met you, but I really genuinely believe that you are another version of me, and I love you, and I want amazing, deep experiences for you in your life. I just want love. I just want love for you, and I will start that with me. I will love you, even when the world seems so unloving. I will love you, and we'll just start together. This is where we start. Okay? All right. I look forward to hearing your thoughts. Mwah. Take care. How do I stop this? I never know.